Next at 6, the Supreme Court strikes down abortion protections nationwide in its most controversial ruling this session. San Diegans and Americans on both sides of the fight are sounding off.
We're hearing from leaders of Planned Parenthood here in San Diego sound off on today's Supreme Court ruling. We hear that perspective and for those in support of the decision.
What does the next generation of women think about today's ruling? We find out.
Plus, we're hearing from supporters of the anti-abortion movement, commemorating a major win following a decades-long fight to end access to abortions in America. CBS 8 News Live at 6 starts right now.
A historic day in America. Abortion rights have been severely curtailed with the Supreme Court's decision to overturn 2 rulings that enshrine access to abortions nationwide. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Marcella Lee.
I'm Carlo Cicchetto. Today, the justices announced their ruling in Mississippi versus Dobbs. In a 6-3 ruling, the court sided with the state in banning abortions after 15 weeks. But 5 justices went further.
Here's how they voted. Justices Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Coney Barrett all voted to overturn Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey. Those 2 rulings had made abortions a federally protected right nationwide. Now, states are free to ban or allow abortions with no federal precedent in place.
This is a live look at Washington, D.C. right now, where protesters are rallying outside the Supreme Court at the Capitol. There have been demonstrations all day long. Right now, here at home, San Diegans are rallying at Waterfront Park downtown. That's where we find CBS 8's Heather Hope. Heather, what are people out there saying?
People behind me with Planned Parenthood are already taking action. Literally, they are taping "take action," those words on the ground along with their posters. Many obviously upset at today's Supreme Court decision. But then we also talked to people on the other side who are calling this a big victory. And also at 6:30, there's a protest just like this one behind me that's taking place at the Hall of Justice. But people who are out today showing their support and rallying say they just want their voices to be heard.
Devastation and sadness and a lot of anger, some tears, and some fear.
Upset and feeling devastated, the Planned Parenthood of the Pacific Southwest president, Dara Johnson, says the Supreme Court reversal of Roe versus Wade hits home for her family.
I have a stepdaughter who lives in the state of Arizona, and I woke up this morning thinking she no longer can get access to care in her state.
Johnson joined with Planned Parenthood's chief medical officer and an ACLU officer to lay out their plan to broaden their health care services to any woman who needs it. They are preparing for a 10% increase from patients mainly coming from Arizona.
We do think we'll see an influx of patients coming to that location specifically.
Though the Supreme Court decision ends nearly 50 years of federally guaranteed access to abortion, some San Diegans see the ruling as a victory.
We couldn't be rejoicing more. We are thrilled that it's going to stop, over 60 million lives that have been lost since 1973.
Sarah Seifert, the business director of Public Square, worked at a pregnancy resource center for 2 years and says big change was needed, and this doesn't mean women won't be supported.
I would encourage them to try looking at this from a different perspective, because there are people out there that want to help, that want to come alongside you and help you know that you're not alone.
Planned Parenthood says there are funds committed in the state budget to support their organization, and they have taken precautions and are monitoring any threats.
We need to use this opportunity to say abortion, to remind everyone that this is health care.
It is time for a change. It is time to support these women differently.
Activists on both sides are telling us that there will be increased support for women, and we're hearing that across the board. And as you can see, that women are already starting to line up here for the Planned Parenthood rally, and that will take place right in front of the county administration building. And then at 6:30, that will be another protest, and that will be at the steps of the Hall of Justice.
Heather, we know the Planned Parenthood rally is gearing up to get started just behind you. Do you know if the people who are there are making any other calls to action beyond tonight's demonstrations?
On their posters, they have donate and take action now with links to their website. I just checked it out on their site with so many different tabs. They have demonstrations like this across all the Planned Parenthoods just within our county, everything starting at 7 p.m., as well as links to vote for this November and ways people can donate to increase access to women who need it.
All right, we'll have more on that, all of the action downtown on CBS 8 News Live at 10 and 11. Thanks, Heather. Meantime, a local attorney in Rancho Santa Fe filed an amicus brief in the Dobbs case on behalf of the conservative nonprofit Thomas More Society that argued Roe versus Wade should be overturned.
CBS 8's David Gottfredson spoke to attorneys on both sides about what today's decision means for the future of abortion and the Supreme Court.
And we will abolish abortion.
The abortion controversy has caused quite the divide ever since the Supreme Court got in the abortion business.
Rancho Santa Fe attorney Paul Jonah helped write amicus briefs filed with the Supreme Court that argued Roe v. Wade should be overturned.
Politicization of the court happened when Roe versus Wade was decided, and this is just undoing that and saying this is not the business of the court. This decision was wrongly decided. Let's go back to where we should have been, which is that this is a state issue.
This decision must not stand.
UCLA law professor Carrie Franklin sees things differently.
I do think the change in personnel in the Supreme Court absolutely explains today's decision, which is why so many Americans have lost faith in the Supreme Court, because it appears to be implementing the political platform of one of the parties.
Franklin believes the ruling opens the door to other rights being taken away.
Same-sex marriage, the right to same-sex intimacy, the right to contraception. The court says that its opinion doesn't undermine those decisions, but the doctrinal test that it adopts absolutely calls those decisions into question.
The pro-life attorney disagrees.
The court goes out of its way to explain that this ruling won't affect, other Supreme Court precedents on contraception and gay marriage. But the reason why this case is different is because it deals with the right to life, and it deals with the strong interest in protecting unborn human beings.
Franklin also worries about what's coming next.
Attempts to bar medication abortion, sending pills through the mail, attempts to bar people from traveling to other states, maybe even attempts to reach out beyond their borders and punish people who aid and abet.
If a state is banning abortion, I think there would probably be criminal penalties associated with that. That is the reality of when certain things are illegal, there's consequences for doing them.
David Gottfredson, CBS 8.
All right, David, despite the justice's ruling to overturn Roe v. Wade, the right to abortion remains legal here in California.
In fact, state leaders are ramping up legal protections for abortion providers and pouring resources into expanding access to clinics. They say they want to ensure that women always have the right to abortion and contraception, regardless of who's been elected to office. They also want to accommodate a potential influx of patients coming from beyond our state borders.
Well, I certainly think that folks are going to be coming in over to San Diego, into the Los Angeles area. We've already seen that that's the case, coming in from Texas, coming in from Oklahoma, right? Roe has fallen in both of those states already, even before this ruling. So we have seen an influx.
According to the Guttmacher Institute, California is now the nearest state with abortion access for about 1.3 million women of reproductive age who don't live in this state.
Meantime, Governor Newsom says California is leading the fight to protect women's rights to an abortion.
Today, he signed a bill into law to that end. Our political reporter Morgan Reiner joins us live with more on that law and why it goes into effect immediately. Morgan.
Newsom signed a law to protect women who get an abortion and health providers in California if they are sued based off of laws in other states. Now, because this bill had an urgency clause, it means that the second the governor signed it today, it is now law. Now, Newsom says he is worried that national Republicans are going to try and overthrow abortions on the federal level, which means that he says he's not sure what it's going to mean for California's progressive efforts in order to enshrine the right to abortion in our own Constitution, and whether or not that will still stand. He also says that he knows the Supreme Court is not going to stop with abortions.
They're coming after you next. Period. Full stop. This is not just about women. This is not just about choice. This is not just about reproductive freedom. They're coming after you next. And we haven't even gotten to trans rights in the 9 states that have banned trans girls from playing youth sports. They're coming after you next.
Justice Clarence Thomas did write a concurring opinion today saying that he wants to revisit other cases that give us rights based off of the 14th Amendment. The cases he specifically spoke about are gay marriage, the right to contraception. But the rights that we have right now under the 4th Amendment go well beyond that. The right to decide how you raise your child, the right to decide not to be sterilized. Now, Newsom said he wants everyone across the country to know that the doors in California are open for you and that the state has been preparing for this for a while with 14 different bills, and all 14 of them are moving forward.
It's a hard feeling for Chair of the California Women's Caucus, Cristina Garcia, to describe.
The idea of losing a right, I mean, that's never happened in my life. It's just also just dumbfounding to me.
On one hand, she didn't think it would actually happen.
But that quickly shifted to I'm not surprised. And then just appreciative that the caucus has been prepared. In January, we announced a package of 13 bills.
AB 1666 protects patients and health professionals who perform an abortion from lawsuits when the claims are based on laws in other states. AB 2091 enhances privacy protections for medical records to law enforcement and out-of-state third parties. AB 2223 ensures that no one in California will be investigated, prosecuted, or incarcerated for experiencing pregnancy loss.
Happy to report that every single bill is moving through the legislature. They're also accompanied with over $140 million in the budget. Just blessed that we have leadership in both houses and the governor and the caucus to make sure this gets done.
Following the leaked draft decision, the legislature has added a 14th bill, a constitutional amendment to enshrine the right to abortion that is quickly making its way through the process.
We will fight hard with every legal tool possible. We will also fight with our vote.
The bills may be moving forward with a Democratic supermajority, but not all lawmakers are on board. Republican Assembly member Tom Lackey, who adopted 2 children, is pro-life.
I vote no on every bill that supports the decision to destroy an innocent life. That's just the position I will always take, and it's based on my moral commitment.
Says his decision to vote no on all 14 of these bills is not just religious.
I believe that it's in the best interest of our Constitution to allow states to make such a sensitive decision, and I think it's misunderstood what the overturning of this court decision will do.
Now, like the bill the governor signed today, a few of them do have that emergency clause, but the majority of that 14 bills do go into effect January 1st.
Thank you, Morgan. While access to abortions here in California are all but guaranteed still, at least for the near term, that's not the case in other states, including several of our neighbors.
Women in Arizona are facing a new reality with their access to abortions practically eliminated. Joe Dana from our sister station in Phoenix breaks down what's next.
This no doubt has a chilling effect at reproductive clinics across the state. Clinics are stopping abortions and consulting with attorneys to figure out what options they have moving forward. This was the door of a Phoenix clinic this morning, notifying clients they are closed for the day. Here's what we know. A 15-week ban on abortion procedures officially goes into effect in 90 days. The most prominent women's health care provider, Planned Parenthood, has suspended abortion procedures in Arizona. But the current law in Arizona is unclear. The state has an abortion ban on the books, which dates back to 1901, when Arizona was still a territory. Many providers are operating under the assumption that law is now back in effect. The law makes it a crime for anyone to help a pregnant woman procure a miscarriage unless it's necessary to preserve the woman's life. The penalty for the abortion provider is 2 to 5 years in prison. But is that law really in effect? Legal experts also point to the fact in 1973, Planned Parenthood got an injunction against that law. One could argue that injunction is still valid. Abortion clinic providers we've spoken to aren't taking chances.
I have paused, and the reason being is that there are so many different laws in Arizona, some contradictory, and so until we get additional guidance from our state, I know I personally felt it was safer to just pause for now until we figure things out.
Both the 1901 law and the 15-week abortion ban passed by the legislature this year do not allow exceptions for rape or incest. There's something else to consider, whether prosecutors choose to even enforce an abortion ban. The executive director of ASU's Center for Constitutional Design tells us you can expect this to become a political issue moving forward.
Prosecutors are elected for the most part. And so the citizens, of course, can decide whether or not they approve of that approach. It will become a political issue, and it already has.
Coming up at 5, we'll hear more from Planned Parenthood in Phoenix about how they are responding to today's ruling. Joe Dana, 12 News.